Mission accomplished! Ow, that hurts. How do spies do this shit? Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol was directed by Brad Bird, who did Tomorrowland. Don't worry, he actually did good movies, Ratatouille and Incredibles 1 and 2, Electric Incredible Boogaloo. So yes, the fourth Mission Impossible movie came out in 2011 and was a resurgence, shall we say, of the proper stunt craziness that the Mission Impossible movies became known for, to the point that everything got absolutely batshit insane, with Tom Cruise being both batshit insane and willing to do every goddamn bit of his own stunts to tell the story of Ethan. Don't call me Mike Hunt. I can't help but say that. And yes, a number of years after the third movie came out, we get this mission, should you choose to accept it, where, well, yeah, more spy stuff happens with more explosions and the Kremlin and Simon Pegg returns and other things that sort of tie the story together, kinda. So, full disclosure, I've never actually seen any of the Mission Impossible movies in full after the third one, kind of like the Harry Potter movies. I saw some of this, and I knew about the building climb and the Dubai sandstorm, deep hurting stuff, and, you know, every bit of what Tom Cruise was willing to do to continue this story. I do have to say, Paula Patton, my goodness, her in that dress near the end of the movie. I mean, who wouldn't fold like a goddamn cheap suit? Good God. Léa Seydoux is in this as well, 2 years before Blue is the Warmest Color came out. It's actually kind of remarkable that she was in movies before that, because it almost seemed like that was a launching point for her career. And it was to an extent, except not maybe for all the right reasons, because if you read up about Blue is the Warmest Color, oh, that director was a very naughty individual, wasn't he? So, Brad Bird obviously didn't write this, he just directed it. So you have Josh Applebaum and Andre Nemec, who have done films such as TMNT 2014. Okay, so the writing wasn't exactly going to be a selling point. You do have Simon Pegg, who plays Benji. You have Jeremy Renner, who plays Brandt. Michael Nyquist. I almost said NyQuil. And some other people. That's really about your basis for the star power there. There are some other recognizable faces. And some nuclear launch codes are stolen. And Ethan and his crew must get them back after a botched mission fingers him as the culprit. And whenever you are fingered and your last name is Hunt, you know that you are in trouble. So it had a $145 million budget. It had a modest opening, but it did end up making $209.3 million in the U.S. and $694.7 million worldwide. So, yeah, I would say things were actually looking up. Look, the first Mission Impossible was actually pretty good. I've done retro reviews of every single one, technically, since this came out in 2011. This could qualify as a retro review. I'm giving some mild, like non-spoiler thoughts before I really get into the minutia, a little bit of this. But the first one was pretty good. Kind of like just a recreation of the television show. The second one had its moments, but none of them were particularly good or memorable, except for the Limp Bizkit song. It did have Thandie Newton in it. My word. And the third one had him with a wife, and other stuff going on, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, doing brain implants and weird stuff and whatnot. So yes, IMF ends up getting disavowed, shall we say, or at least Ethan gets disavowed after certain things, and we're in Budapest. A guy ends up getting killed when he doesn't realize that Léa Seydoux is about to kill him. There are worse ways to go if she is going to take you out. And Ethan is in a prison, and he gets freed because Benji and everybody finds him. He manages to get a guy out that ends up helping him a little bit later on. And there was a funny line that reminded me of Airplane. It said, "Mind telling me what you were doing in a Russian prison? Joey, do you like movies about gladiators?" So, and Jane, played by Paula Patton, who, once again, with respect, my goodness, my goddamn goodness, what a beauty, what an absolute beauty she is. I mean, she was good in this movie too, but good God, exceptionally attractive. So, there is a guy named codenamed Cobalt. That's actually Hendrix. And we get our mission going on, and that's really about it right there. Now I'm just going to get into spoilers. So just so you know, for those that haven't seen it. By the way, I am reviewing all of these in, well, obviously in sequential order, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. I'm going all the way up to the 7th one in preparation for the 8th one, which I will watch in theaters, because why the hell not? Might as well see the conclusion of this this odyssey of 8 films over nearly 30 fucking years. And so it turns out that Ethan and his wife split up. Actually, it turns out, explained at the end of the movie, that she wasn't killed in Croatia or wherever. She was actually kind of sent away to be with a friend where Ethan still loves her and still visits her, but that way she's protected from all this. Because spy, spoopy nonsense. So, I mean, the stuff about the launch codes, it just feels like almost like a bit of a go back to the first one, about the files with the agents and stuff like that. Thankfully, no John Boyd. They go into the Kremlin. Ethan dresses up as a Russian general. That ends up going tits up because the files are empty. There are other people that are getting in on this whole goddamn thing, i.e. Hendricks, who wants to use these launch codes to basically destroy a city because evil genius, I guess. I mean, why not? And Ethan is blamed for this, escapes easily while just wearing pants, no shoes, somehow uses his belt to rappel down a goddamn power line, land on a van, and be okay. There's a guy named Leonid who ends up basically, involved in all this. And, well, Hendricks is like, yeah, I'm just going to end up kidnapping your family and you're going to help me. Tom Wilkinson is in this, briefly, very briefly. We get introduced to Jeremy Renner's Brandt, who it turns out actually knew all about the stuff. He thought that he ended up leading to the death of Ethan's wife, but she's very much alive at the end of the movie, just so you know. And there's an ambush, by the way, where Tom Wilkinson is killed very quickly. And after basically telling Ethan, oh, yeah, we're going to take you to the airport, but should you take us out conveniently and go to the stash and do all this stuff, you could do this mission. You could. By the way, I found it funny a little bit earlier that one of their, points where they would have a mission given out was at a payphone. What if somebody entered that right number and got that and didn't know what the hell was going on? There are certain questions I have about this setup. So, to Dubai with the team. So, the giant building, the tallest building in the world. Obscene amounts of camel toe on the highway there. If you get it, you get it. And then Ethan uses gloves. Kind of like the Power Glove stuff if they actually worked. Who remembers the Power Glove? Who's old enough to remember the Nintendo Power Glove? I had a buddy that had one of those. They weren't very good. They look cool, but they didn't work at all. So blue is glue, and when it's red, dead. So basically, this technology will help him stick like Spider-Man and go up there while it starts malfunctioning. There's a sandstorm coming, deep hurting. And I'm moving along quickly with this plot because, realistically, besides looking at Lea Seydoux and Paula Patton, their characters aren't given much to do until just a little bit later on. And, yeah, the glove ends up having a mind of its own at one point and malfunctions. So Ethan decides, I'll just use one glove and do this, and then the glove starts flying around and stuff like that. Windows are breaking. He manages to get in. The idea is he's got to, find a way to hack in so Benji can stop elevators and do all this. In the world's tallest building, why would you need a building that tall? Genuinely, I am asking this. For anybody that lives in Dubai, why would you need a building that tall? Why would we need it? Why would anybody need a building that tall? The maintenance on that thing must be insane, especially with all the sandstorms. And Leah looks incredible in black, by the way. I mean, really in any color. But, yeah, it turns out this mask-making technology kind of malfunctions. So they just go in and do their negotiations. Paula tries to negotiate with Hendrix, and Ethan and Jeremy Renner negotiate, or Brandt rather, negotiate with Leah's Sadine. And it's diamonds, and diamonds for codes. And Paula and Leah actually end up getting in a fight, which actually is rather hilarious because Leah just gets thrown out the goddamn window, or kicked out the window. That's one way to go. That was a cool fight. I certainly wouldn't want to have been in the middle of it as a referee, or caught in the middle, literally. I'm fine, totally fine here. So, now Hendrix has the codes. The idea is he has to be tracked. Well, Ethan is tracking him through, this device, but it's a sandstorm. You can't see, and also it's going to interrupt the satellites, but somehow he's able to use this BlackBerry type technology to find him, and it's actually kind of hilarious what's going on. Of course, there is one point where Paula's getting in a fight with Leah, gets in a fight with others. That's actually really kind of goddamn nice. Who would want to be on the receiving end of her beating? I'm fine. I don't have issues. So, it was hilarious to just see how Leah took the goddamn play. That was actually really fucking hilarious. But there's a car chase in the sandstorm. Hendrix ends up getting away, even though their cars crash into each other, and Ethan nearly gets smashed by a car. And then Brandt basically, he's not who he says he is. We find the stuff I mentioned before, and all that stuff. And he mentions to Paula and or Jane rather, and Simon Pegg's character Benji, that hey, this is what happened. So Bogdan was the character that I forgot the name of before. I actually forgot to write his name down originally, but he's the guy that Ethan freed from that jail. So now there's a character called the Fog that kind of plays both sides. War is good for for business, except when it's nuclear war. You kind of need people to be alive and not irradiated. We do not need a Chernobyl's Diaries situation. My God, we do not. So, the codes need a tactical satellite, so they got to find a way to get Hendrix before he gets to the codes. And the idea is now they're going to use Brandt to jump into this goddamn thing, because everything involves jumping and, floating along, either on wires or whatever. You got to stop this fan, get in this giant supercomputer that'll end up overheating to the point that I question the logic behind this. And he's sweating. There's there's Jane having to seduce a guy, while wearing an my God, that dress. I'm okay, but my God, who could resist? Who could resist her charms? So, nevertheless, she ends up basically getting the codes from that guy. At one point, threatening to choke him out if didn't give him the codes. There are worse ways to go. Harder, bitch. No, I'm kidding. And then, basically, Ethan and Hendrix get in a fight in a weird parking garage vortex thing where it's like almost a dealership. It's just hilarious. It's this tower where they're moving stuff around. It's all automated and they're reparking this stuff. And Hendrix decides, I'm going to do this while everything else is going on. You're not getting the briefcase. I've launched it. I'm going to fall down and die. I've done what I need to do. Ethan then decides to get in a BMW and plunge it straight down and hit the briefcase, or hit the airbag, and get out. And meanwhile, this guy's been looking for him. This Russian guy's been looking for him with a busted nose and all this. Because he thinks that Ethan is the one that did this. And he's not the one that did this. They end up basically, not coming to blows because Hendrix is pretty much fucked. I mean, he launched himself off the goddamn, edge, fell on the roof, and he's toast. And then Ethan goes to hit the button. Mission accomplished, and he does that. But the thing is it's not working because the power was shut off. Jeremy Renner's in a fight with a guy, has to try and hit the switch. Benji needs the power to override all this stuff and everything. His fingers are bleeding because he can't see what he's doing. The wires are cutting him and all that. Well, they managed to turn the power off on just in time. He hits the button after everything's reset. And the missile ends up hitting the top of that world's tallest building and crashes into the ocean. And everything's fine. Oh, yes, and then Ving Rhames shows up at the very end, Luther. And Ethan's wife is still alive. I don't believe that Paula Patton returned for the fifth movie. I think Rebecca Ferguson was in the fifth one. If I saw the cast right, I'll watch that at some point. But yeah, it's a fun movie. I mean, it's not necessarily great, but I would say at least a B to a B plus. I'd say probably a B. It ends up being entertaining. It's a lot of the same, but this is certainly a major improvement over the second and third one. So now I get to see how the fifth, sixth, and seventh movies end up going over time, because this is like the second week of April when I'm recording this, just depending on when you end up seeing this. And I got certain things to take care of, certain other projects. That being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rethlin. I'll see you soon.